That's the oven. It's reached 400. It's going to reheat my pizza when I'm done this.
Wow, reheating pizza. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
that's
a student story. I'm not sure whether it counts as a revolutionary, but I was discussing this the other day, how insane it was that I did this. I hitchhiked all the way from Sheffield, which is where I went to university,
Mhm.
to Krakow.
Wow.
And which seemed like a good idea until I was in a village in a remote part of the Czech Republic, running away from a lorry driver. I won't go into all the details, so not a revolution, but something I definitely wouldn't repeat. How about you?
What? Yes, well, I went out with the hunt saboteurs on a fox hunt once, and, we're kinda like Quadrophenia, and we're kinda like
Yeah.
extras from Quadrophenia piling out the back of this van, which was great until I found out that my uncle John was the policeman in charge of the operation. So he ended up chasing after us, and nobody wanted to know me after that.
You were the lame one
Yeah,
on the
as
hunt.
ever. Yeah.
I'm Martha Kelner.
And I'm James Matthews. It's Wednesday, the 28th of May, and day 128 of Trump 2.0. The Trump administration has put a hold on foreign students and has put a spotlight on their social media.
Plus, President Trump is threatening to block California's entire federal funding over one trans athlete.
Okay, Martha, let's start with students, specifically foreign ones, because they're being warned and they are being watched. The
Yeah.
socials are, at least, yeah?
Yeah, on Tuesday, this was the Trump administration confirmed it was going to stop handing out any new student visas. They say this is in order to increase screening on applicants' social media before they approve visas in the future. But we're talking here about hundreds of thousands of students' social media account, possibly even a million social media accounts. So this is a serious time consuming undertaking. And it's all part of this wider targeting of foreign students by the Trump administration. In the last few months, international students, they've had their visas revoked, they've even been arrested in the street, detained for minor infringements or for expressing political views online. We've also seen Trump directly taking aim at some of the US's biggest universities, notably Harvard, cutting federal funding and barring them from admitting foreign students at all.
Yeah, some of the top seats of learning. You mentioned Harvard, Columbia as well. Harvard actually is fighting back pretty much on its own. It's
Yeah.
taking on Trump in the courts. The administration, it's tried to
Mm.
impose changes to its curriculum, admission policies, and hiring practices. Harvard has sued in response to that. In turn, Trump administration, it's up the ante, barring new foreign students from enrolling at Harvard and demanding that international students already there move to different places of learning.
Mhm.
This clearly would hit Harvard where it hurts financially. We mentioned on a previous episode, Martha, that out of Harvard's annual roll of 30,000 students, almost a third are from overseas. So, in terms of the money Harvard could lose, you're talking about $600 million a year, and not a small amount, even for the country's richest university.
Yeah, I think because Harvard is so rich, that's part of the reason why they are fighting back, why they're going toe to toe with the Trump administration. But this is a serious financial hit, even for Harvard. Last week, a federal judge ruled that the Trump administration's blocking of Harvard admitting international students is illegal. But this has got to be weighing heavily on the minds of foreign students. If you're sitting back
Sure.
in your home countries considering coming to study at Harvard or any university in America, if you know that there is a risk of being deported or arrested on the streets in the United States, it's going to make you think, Maybe I'll go elsewhere."
Yeah, vetting social media platforms is all a bit big brother. The Department of Homeland Security last month said it would screen some visa applications for anti Semitic activity on social media and the physical harassment of Jewish individuals. But other than that, it's not really clear how the vetting will be rolled out.
Yeah, as we understand it, the administration wants to screen for pro Palestinian views. So, in previous cases, students displaying pro Palestinian ideology have been accused of being pro Hamas, with little to no evidence that that's actually the case. But
Yeah.
the rules to what is and what isn't allowed on social media, what will and won't allow you access to the United States, isn't clear. There aren't any guidelines that we know of as to what counts as anti Semitic activity. Trump was asked recently by a journalist why he's trying to exclude the best and the brightest from institutions like Harvard. And he came up with some
Mhm.
word salad about some of them needing to do remedial maths. So, how could they be the brightest? But he's not really come up with a sufficient answer to that. And the reasons that the Trump administration have given for targeting students have varied over the past few months. First, anti Semitism, then it was about them colluding with foreign entities or about just being, in Trump's words, general troublemakers.
Mhm.
But we all know that authoritarian governments generally they begin their reign by targeting universities because of what they are and what they represent, because traditionally they are places of dissent, of big thinkers, of people presenting alternative ideologies and views.
Now, Martha, news from where you are, California. Donald Trump has threatened to strip federal funding from the state if it defies his executive order banning transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. You've been taking a look at this, yeah?
Yeah, President Trump wrote on Truth Social that California continues, in his words, to illegally allow men to play in women's sports. He wrote, "This is not fair and it's totally demeaning to women and girls." Although he doesn't name her in the post, it's very clear that the president is referring to a 16-year-old, AB Hernandez, who is
Yeah.
a transgender high school student from Southern California. And she recently won regional titles in triple jump and long jump, which qualified her for the state championships, which are taking place this coming weekend. He wrote that he would, in his words, order local authorities, if necessary, to not allow the transitioned person to compete in state finals. So, a direct threat here to a
hmm
teenager.
Trump signed that executive order back in February, didn't he?
Yeah.
Banning transgender student athletes from competing in women's sports. Remember, he did that in front of a big crowd of women and girls at the White House. He doesn't like what he's seeing in California, does he?
Yeah, that was one of his showpiece events, banning transgender women from competing in women's sport is one of the pillars that he stood on while running for office. And
Yeah.
this case has been gaining a lot of media attention, not just in California, but across the United States. There was a picture that did the rounds on social media of AB Hernandez, this 16-year-old trans athlete, standing on the top of the winner's podium, and it's got a lot of hate online because AB was born male and is now competing in girls' sports as a trans woman, as a trans athlete. Hernandez's mum has also been confronted by angry rival parents at track and field meets, athletics events. There's
Mhm.
this video that's gone viral on TikTok now, and there's another parent who also happens to be running for state office in California, so an emerging politician. She approaches Hernandez's mum, starts yelling at her.
Boys are boys, girls are girls. This son does not belong competing against those girls. Period. What a coward of a woman you are allowing that. What a coward and telling our women, telling girls to go and compete against a boy. How embarrassing! You're a mother. You're a mother. Stand up like a mother. I am a mother. I'm protecting girls. You want a boy? How many people support the boy competing against the girls? Nobody.
And Hernandez's mum is vocal herself on social media promoting trans rights. She said in previous interviews that the bullying of her child is tantamount to child abuse. I think what's really extraordinary in this case is that a 16-year-old, such a vulnerable point in her life, has become
Mhm.
the focal point of this war between the right and the left. And it's not clear, nor probably should it be clear, whether AB has already gone through puberty or has fully transitioned pre-puberty. Deeply uncomfortable to talk about, but actually that is at the heart of the debate around trans participation in sport, i.e.,
Yeah.
whether the athlete has a substantial biological advantage or not. If you have
Mhm.
gone through puberty as a male, you generally have a musculoskeletal advantage that can't be done by suppressing testosterone. That all goes a bit into the weeds, but it is important in this case.
Mhm.
AB didn't win events across the board as it happens. She won in the triple jump, but came third in the long jump and eighth in the high jump. What's very clear, though, is that Team Trump has seen her case and seized upon it. That's why he was mentioning it at this military commencement address over the weekend, and why he continues to focus on it now.
I don't think so. How crazy is it? Men playing in women's sports, how crazy is it? So ridiculous, so demeaning to women.
We've had a response from the state's high school sports body, the California Interscholastic Federation. It looks like it was drawn up before Trump's post, actually. They say they've decided to change the criteria for athletes participating in the weekend state track and field championship. They say that any biological female student athlete can compete if they were otherwise knocked out of qualifying by a trans athlete. It does mean that trans athletes can still compete, though.
Yeah, basically, under this rule, it essentially means more girls can compete. So if you finished outside the qualification spots by one place, you can gain entry. But AB Hernandez can still win gold at the state championships. That is sure to cause an almighty furore.
Mm.
The key question is, will California's Governor Gavin Newsom give up any ground on this issue after Trump's threats? Will he prevent Hernandez taking part? Trump said he was due to speak to Newsom later on Tuesday. At the time that we're recording this podcast, we don't know how that conversation has gone, if it's happened at all. What we do know is that Gavin Newsom is relatively moderate for a Democrat on this issue. He previously said on his own podcast that he thinks it's deeply unfair for transgender athletes to participate in girls' sports. A spokesperson for him said those new rules that you just outlined, James, are a reasonable way to navigate this issue. Um, his office, Newsom's office, also told us they think the issue is overblown. Out of 5.8 million students in their public school system, they said the number of active transgender student athletes is estimated to be in the single digits. So that is
Yeah.
hard to
Yeah.
argue. It does seem like an outsized response to this issue.
And I suppose one question, Martha, would Newsom even have to give up any ground? Under the US and California constitutions, the state isn't subject to the orders of the president.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the weaknesses of a presidential executive order. It doesn't reach as far and wide as an act of Congress would, for example.
Martha, we should mention the latest on Ukraine as well. The
Yeah.
fallout from the weekend trickles on. To recap, Russia launched its biggest aerial attack yet on Ukraine over the weekend. Donald Trump's response, well, came on social media where else he said Putin had gone absolutely crazy. And there was more on Tuesday, yeah?
Yeah, another Truth Social post. Feel like I'm exist only on Truth Social at the moment. But
Don't we all?
Trump said that Putin is, in his words, playing with fire, which is a real tone change from just over a week ago when they had that 2 hour long phone call, which by all accounts from the White House went swimmingly. The
Mm.
cracks in that relationship now starting to show through, with some suggestions the administration could move ahead with new sanctions on Russia as well.
Yeah, those phrases, something has happened to him. He
Yeah.
has gone absolutely crazy. Quite a stunning statement from Donald Trump. Stunning, I think, in its ignorance. What Vladimir Putin has he been watching for the past decade? Because
Mhm.
everybody else has seen a brutal autocrat for whom the casual atrocities is nothing if it stands in the way of personal or territorial ambition. Ukraine and European allies will despair, I think, of a diplomacy that makes Trump persist in this notion that Putin is a man to be trusted. They want action, and this consternation on social media won't, for them, cut it.
Yeah, we've drifted a long way from the President Trump that said he could bring peace to Russia and Ukraine within a day of being in office. He's now been in office 128 days and perhaps starting to wake up to the realities of dealing with a dictator like Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, just perhaps. Anyway, that's it for today's episode of Trump 100. But you can get in touch with us, as always, on trump100@sky.uk.
And you can help us spread the word by following the podcast wherever you're listening, writing us a review, or just telling a friend.
We'll see you tomorrow for another day of Trump 100.
See you then.
All the best.
Enjoy your pizza.